Hi everyone. The drama we will be presenting today is Mr. Sunshine, a South Korean television series directed by Lee Eun-bok that was released in 2018. We will be discussing both the television series and the article Historical Drama in the Time of Global Streaming Platforms, Envisioning Transition in Mr. Sunshine, written by Ye-ri Kim. The film uses themes of romance, history, and political controversy to showcase the main character Eugene Choi's journey back to his homeland. After past childhood trauma and death to his loved ones, he returns to Korea and discovers unrecognizable societal changes and rediscovers his own personal identity. The drama revolves around two characters, Eugene Choi and Go A-shin. Eugene is a male Korean-American Marine officer who returns to Korea after many years in the United States to attempt to restore Korea's global independence. Go A-shin is a noble woman who is secretly part of the anti-colonial movement. She is showcased in the drama as brave, independent, and determined as she strives to fight for national freedom. The drama evolves as the two characters cross paths in their own independent journeys. The other characters include Kim Hee-sung, Go A-shin's wealthy but irresponsible childhood friend, but gradually matures and takes a stand against oppression. Gu Dong-mei, a past soldier who then became a mercenary. Mr. Sunshine is set during the late 19th and early 20th century, which was a turbulent time in Korean history. In that time period, the Korean Joseon dynasty started to decline, and Japanese colonialism was just starting to rise. As a result, Korea was fighting hard for modernization and independence due to external foreign pressure. This historical backdrop highlights the societal tensions during that time period, as a number of secret societal military groups were drastically increasing. In consequence, all characters in the film were not only fighting for their independent missions, but were also fighting for national independence and their own cultural identity. As we all know, Netflix has emerged as one of the most dominant streaming platforms, mainly due to its international expansion and localization strategies. Netflix struggled in 2016, but after a heavy emphasis on local creators and shows, its subscribers grew dramatically in 2018. As such, it has established a significant presence in South Korea, where Mr. Sunshine was formed. Originally, Mr. Sunshine had a serious budget constraint due to its high production cost of 43 billion won and had serious questions on its viability. But after selling its rights to Netflix for 30 billion won for exclusive distribution rights, its target audience increased exponentially. With the addition of subtitles in many different languages, Mr. Sunshine was available to stream in more than 190 nations, making it a huge success both locally and globally. All in all, the partnership between Mr. Sunshine and Netflix serves as an example of how global platforms can have a significant impact on regional independent industries.
Historically, Mr. Sunshine can roughly be divided into two parts, the first half focusing on the social and political failures of the Joseon dynasty, and the latter half highlighting Korea's struggle against Japanese invaders. The drama opens with the Battle of Ganghwa, a war fought between the United States and Korea in 1871 after Korea denied the United States' attempt to establish trade relations. The drama depicts the battle as a result of both internal and external factors, with a focus on internal corruption in politics. In the opening scene, pictured here, a court messenger informs the king and his courtiers about the U.S. Navy's request for diplomatic relations and permission to explore the country. This request is immediately turned down by the king's courtiers, claiming that the United States is a barbaric country whom Korea should not associate with. After Korea's loss at the hands of the United States, it is later revealed that Korean politicians knew of the power of American forces and chose to not prevent battle for the sake of their own personal interests and gains. This is just one example of a recurring theme throughout the drama. Rather than focusing on the force of outside aggressors against the Korean state, emphasis lies on internal political and social structural failures. One major criticism lies in the way in which the drama removes accountability from the oppressor, which in the drama is depicted as the United States and Japan, and transfers it to the oppressed. In a literal sense, this perception can be problematic. However, in this context, it can be somewhat justified. The decision to focus on the accountability of Joseon's Korea for its faults in major historical events emphasizes the creative team's refusal to accept the Japanese invasion as Korea's inevitable fate, and their aspirations to imagine a better, perhaps unrealized course of history. through its critique and focus on internal failures, Mr. Sunshine paints Korea as a place of missed opportunities, while simultaneously inviting its audience to picture an alternative course of history by painting major historical events as direct consequences of decisions and circumstances that could have been changed. In her article, Kim goes even farther in arguing that the creative team's decision of challenging past representations of Korea as helpless against the Japanese invaders, while simultaneously painting Korea as a place of missed opportunities, can be reflected back onto the principles of the modern-day Korean media industry. Quote, "The idea that Korean society and its people could have prevented the loss of sovereignty, but failed to do so in their own shortcomings, translates into the belief that contemporary Koreans can do better. It is an unprecedented time, both economically and culturally. The South Korean media industry has the responsibility and the power to achieve a better outcome." And to take it a step further, Kim's call to action can, and in my opinion should, be extended to domestic and international societies as a whole. Just like Mr. Sunshine invites us to do, it is up to us to interpret and critique past events in an effort to learn from our past mistakes and create a better future.
The addition of Iwanik as the main villain of the drama drastically shifts the focus from the Japanese colonizers to the Korean conspirators. This implies that although ultimately the conspirators are still working under the orders of the Japanese, from the perspective of the audience, they are largely motivated by their personal agendas as well. Some criticize this decision as an act of justifying the conspirators' actions because it was done in response to the inadequacies of pre-occupation Korea's upper echelon. Armed with the knowledge that Chosun will eventually fall to external powers, individuals such as Iwanik chose to pursue personal gain over the country's sovereignty. This splits the blame between the conspirators, who abandoned their country as a means of self-preservation, and Chosun's rulers, who lacked the foresight in the ensuing conflict with Japan. Although this criticism is valid because it does set the foundation for the argument that perhaps the conspirators would not have resorted to such actions if the emperor and his retainers did a proper job of ruling the country. However, on the other hand, just because those in power are slowly leading the nation into ruin does not mean that the next best course of action is to not only surrender to your colonizers, but to also aid them in their agenda in hopes of saving yourself. So this emphasis on agency and the possibility of a different course of history is one of the reasons that the author argues that the drama's first half is too preoccupied with the more positive depiction of Korea as a place of missed opportunities. However, this same emphasis on agency also creates a rather interesting dynamic. So while it did incite criticisms from the audience because of the negative depictions of Chosun, it also increased interest through envisioning a new perspective. Because this is such an important part of Korea's history, and many people in Korea are already aware of the major details and the actual course of history, which probably also explains why it did better domestically than it did internationally. Because rather than a bombardment and the sudden influx of all this new information, people were simply seeing a new side to it, which encouraged audience engagement, whether through criticisms or newfound interest in history through a retelling, which, if you look back on our readings, is one of the major goals of films that deal with history, encouraging the public to engage more with history itself, right? The crucial part here is while they've taken these creative liberties, such as altering some parts, the latter half of Mr. Sunshine not only offers a more faithful portrayal of history than its former half, it also highlights the independence movement, spurring patriotic sentiments in the audience, in particular with its inclusion of nameless, lower-class resistance members. So although the main villain is a fictional character, the overarching narrative actually does not stray from history. Rather than using an existing figure as the basis of the villain, creating an entirely new one whose existence can be disproved with a single Google search allows the drama to portray history differently without skewing the important parts and altering it as a whole. So in essence, Mr. Sunshine is more than what the author argues as a reflection of the current media industry in Korea.
In the Imagining the Time of Transition section of the article on Mr. Sunshine, the discussion revolves around how the series interprets a critical transitional period in Korean history. This section emphasizes how crucial it is to view the series as a creative interpretation that serves to articulate national identities and collective memories developed during turbulent times rather than merely as a historical narrative. There were three main points that were discussed in this part. First is about the portrayal of hope and optimism. Mr. Sunshine depicts this period of war with a sense of hope, focusing on the positive aspects of Western influences and the potential for modern advancement. Second is about the vibrant and visual aspects of the series. We can see that Mr. Sunshine features a vibrant and romanticized portrayal of the city of Seoul, blending traditional Korean architecture with foreign elements, showcasing the city's modernizing efforts. And lastly is about the reflection of contemporary aspiration. The series mirrors current hopes and concern within the Korean media industry, linking its historical setting to the time period in which it was created. Now let's dive a bit deeper in terms of visual aspects about the show. We can see that Mr. Sunshine utilizes high-quality cinematography to highlight the aesthetic contrast between traditional Joseon landscapes and the emerging modern influences of the early 20th century. In the scene on your right, you can see that in episode 1, Seoul City transformation was depicted through the introduction of Western architecture, clothing, and technology. And this helped create a stark contrast with traditional Korean elements. In addition, the color palettes and lighting techniques in Mr. Sunshine enhance the theme of modernity. Bright and stark lighting, along with scenes showcasing the new modern world, use more vibrant colors. In contrast, scenes focused on traditional Korean life are portrayed with softer, more subdued tones. This visual approach emphasizes the emotional and cultural impacts of the era's rapid transformation. In this scenes on episode 1, Mr. Sunshine depicts Korea first lighting off street lamps as an alluring spectacle, engendering utopian imagination about the positive modernization that was never realized.
Most of the article does focus on media ecology and the age of platformization that provided the conditions to bring Mr. Sunshine to the global audience. The visual details, historical portrayals, and tonal messaging within the setting of the drama all clearly reflect ambition and optimism surrounding the horizons of possibility during Mr. Sunshine's production period. As mentioned earlier, Mr. Sunshine's earlier episodes were criticized by the domestic Korean audience for portraying tragic national history as the product of Korean people's own inability. But although there are choice decisions to often paint America as the stronger, more righteous colonizer when compared to Japan, there are scenes where Korean strength is highlighted, such as the scene during the Battle of Kanghwa, where an American soldier writing a letter home states, "Despite being on the verge of losing, there has not been a single deserter. Enemies keep getting back up time and time again. I've never witnessed such a raging and fierce battle." These scenes are actually pivotal towards creating the narrative that Korea is capable of possibilities other than a destiny of subjugation. Though agency in such challenging times can lead to selfish, self-preserving, and capitalist characters such as Lee Wan-ik, who shames the Korean prisoners of war, saying, "You are so ignorant, that's why you keep fighting. What did the country of Joseon ever do for you?" The same agency of choice fuels the hopeful note and transnational themes that are carried out throughout the drama. While the lofty global aspirations for international success may not have been met as expected, Mr. Sunshine did go on to win Studio Dragon a 3-year Netflix contract, opening up a channel to continue branching out into various genres and productions, eventually creating the globally successful Sweet Home fantasy drama in 2020. We would also argue that the drama did help Korean domestic viewers take a step back and view historical events from a more far-removed and internationally presented perspective. As the plot turned to focus on independence movements and brought members of the Korean resistance to light, viewers with a sense of nationalism and patriotism were able to better connect the parallels between the temporal setting of the show and their own social, cultural, and temple environment. These social, cultural behaviors and actions of all the Koreans within the show are all from centuries of tradition and history. For the international audience, this drama may just look like a visually stunning time capsule of history, but for the Korean diasporic, or Korean-informed audience, every single scene is so much more poignant. For example, the scene pictured at the bottom here, where it says, "I must say, it kind of makes sense for you to sit there." There's so many layers of irony with a female nobility character sitting in a chair within a hanok that has been converted into an American embassy, and just having that information behind the reasoning for that singular line really outlines the international and intersectional intricacies that go into making a transnational film, which can be both accepted by the domestic and international audience.